Well, a very interestingly timed announcement from Cassie. Now, I'm not accusing Cassie of timing it for this particular purpose, but she announced she is pregnant, having her third child with her husband, Alex Fine. And it comes amid some new attempts on Diddy's team to drop some of these charges. And what you got to think about, we're going to get to what he wants to change in just a moment. But Cassie being pregnant now, and she didn't say how far along she is. But remember, the trial starts first week in May. I believe May 5th.
If it starts then.
If it starts then. And if she is on the stand, as we expect her to be, she is victim number one in the indictment.
She's going to be the star witness.
That she's the star witness. Now you have the star witness pregnant on the stand. That is a...
Well, you know what it is.
I mean, the sympathy...
You know what it is. We can go back a few segments here, and it's kind of the Rihanna effect in the courtroom. And they're going to look at this woman who is pregnant, engaged, and it's kind of, trying to juxtapose these two images. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, that's the subliminal difficulty that Diddy's going to have.
The part they're not going to be able to escape is when they play the
video of her
hotel
being dragged
beating video.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right. But that's what they're going to argue.
But that's going to be the game going back and forth. Speaking of the freak-offs, Diddy has a defense for that, and it's basically that the government is trying to ring him up on a very old, antiquated, racist statute. It's called the Mann Act, and he actually filed documents yesterday asking the judge to dismiss count number 3 of the indictment because he believes that he is being selectively prosecuted because he is a black man, and they're trying to take him down using the Mann Act. In fact, in the documents, he says, we've seen it play out this way for decades. He says they did it to Chuck Berry, they did it to the boxer Jack Johnson, using this Mann Act, and now they're trying to do it to me when all I'm doing is leading my life the way lots of people do, and they're never prosecuted for it, particularly when they're white.
And in our documentary, The Downfall of Diddy, which is on Tubi, we talked to Mark Agnifilo, Diddy's lawyer, who said racism was a core part of the defense.
Right. Well, will this be successful? I mean, essentially, Diddy's team is saying they're kind of admitting that he committed that he did have sex workers.
Yeah, not necessarily. It's
that he did hire sex workers who came to his parties, and that's just how he gets down. And why should he be prosecuted for that? Can it be successful to put basically the government on trial for using this law and for this law even existing? Joining us right now to discuss that, Anthony Capozzolo is a former federal prosecutor himself. Still is now a defense attorney, and he is joining us now. Anthony, welcome to TMZ Live.
Great. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be on.
We appreciate it. So selective prosecution is a thing in the law, and it has been used occasionally with success where prosecutors may have targeted somebody for something that they never would otherwise prosecute other people for. Is it possible that could fly here?
In this particular case, I don't think so. If you read the defendant's motion papers, it presents a very narrow view of the evidence that's alleged in the indictment. In fact, it talks mostly about male escorts and inviting them into the very intimacies of his own marriage. Count 3 actually alleges sex trafficking involving 3 female victims in addition to the male escorts. So I believe there's a great disparity in the characterization of the case just within the motion they're filing and the indictment as it's filed. Now, it is true that the Mann Act does have a racial history. It was used many years ago to target African Americans who were engaging in what might be called immoral conduct, according to the Times. But that statute was amended several times. It removed the immoral purposes, and it removed some other language, and now restricts application of the statute to conduct involving sex trafficking and transportation related to criminal conduct. So the only way the statute can be charged now is if it's alleged that somebody committed a crime. And again, I think the indictment alleges more conduct than what is addressed in the defense motion. And so this motion.
Can I stop you? That's really interesting, because if the crime is not just taking somebody from one state to another and paying them, if they can prove it's consensual, what's the crime?
Prostitution is still a crime. So transporting someone across lines for prostitution solely could still be considered a crime. However, it's important to note that the conduct that they described in the defense motion seems to be a bit more narrow than what that count 3 in the indictment actually alleges, which also talks about the 3 female victims. And there are other allegations in the indictment that relate to that as well.
I spoke to Mark Agnifilo on the documentary we did. And this kind of reminds me of Johnny Cochran and O.J. Simpson, that Johnny changed the defendant to the state, to the police. What Agnifilo said to me, and I could hear him talking to the jury in closing, he says, this is an attempt to take down a successful black man. And there is a long, rich history of that among prosecutors. That worked with O.J. Simpson, that kind of defense where you don't look at what happened to Nicole, you look at something bigger. Could that happen here?
It really will come down to the evidence at trial. It's definitely a theme. Mark Agnifilo is a great lawyer. I know him for many years. He is a formidable force in the courtroom. It really will depend on what the evidence is, much of which we don't have access to. There are references to videotapes. There may be witnesses that have either are known to the prosecution or have become known to the prosecution that we're unaware of. A lot of the materials are covered by a protective order. But I agree with you, that is exactly the argument that the defense will be making, along with many others, to the jury, that this case is being treated in some way more special because of who he is. And that runs into that theme that there's a long history of targeting prominent African Americans in the past, like the cases you mentioned, Chuck Berry and the boxer who was actually pardoned by, I believe, Obama many years ago.
All right. It is going to be interesting, just a couple months away. But you're right. It does sound like they're setting it up that is going to be the tack they take. Anthony, thank you so much.
Thank you, Anthony.
For joining us.
Thanks
we'll talk to you soon.
me.
Appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah. Very interesting.
It's going to be
By the way, as far as being a crime, the prostitution, they also say in the document, they go, escorts are just a commonly accepted part of American culture now. And they point to their TV shows about it and that they operate in the open. So why is he being
tough
tried on this?
It's sort of like saying to the federal government, hey, marijuana is legal in a lot of other states. No, marijuana. And it's still illegal federally. And you can't, that argument's never fly. Well, it's in California, you can use it. It doesn't fly. Yeah. Okay, we're taking a break.
All right, when we come back, Kevin Spacey has an explosive response to allegations from his former co-star Guy Pearce, who says that Kevin made him uncomfortable on set. Well, wait until you hear what Kevin has to say about what their relationship really was when we come back.